Okay, live from the occupied nation's capital, still with 5,000 troops, at least 5,000, maybe 7,000. Who knows? Nancy Pelosi does, but she's not turning over the intelligence to Republicans. We don't think, otherwise there'd be a firestorm up here, and there's not. Raheem is at the 53rd day of our occupation, and Raheem, hit your mark on this one. How many days with an unoccupied press conference?
Well, it's a very good question. It's 40 days without an unaccompanied, no hand-holding press conference for Joe Biden. And it is extraordinary because even Politico, in their morning playbook, the I Ching, right, of the establishment, they even noted today, no visitor logs, no scheduling, no press conference by himself. This is probably the least transparent White House we've seen in decades.
You talk a lot of smack about going back and putting out the Trump visitor logs, which I was all for, 1,000% from the beginning. They won't even release theirs. What is going on? Okay, you're in the war room. It's Monday, the 1st of March, the year of our Lord 2021 now, with over 38 million downloads of the podcast. Of course, we're on the John Fredericks Radio Network nationwide, and we're adding a new station a day, WMLB, 1690 in Atlanta, Georgia, Metro Atlanta. Very honored to be down there. We actually started the broadcast with Herschel Walker, an incredible interview. Doug Collins had his show 3 to 4. So we're going to be, Georgia is the new central battleground state. As I said in the press release we put out, as Georgia goes, so goes the nation. As the nation goes, so goes the world. That's how important Georgia is with everything that's going on right now in this great fight between populist, nationalist conservatism and the globalist elite of the party of Davos, that is both Wall Street, the global corporations, the Democratic Party, and guess what? Yes, certain elements of the Republican establishment. We're on Real America's Voices streaming service of the Trump Revolution, Dish Channel 219, Comcast Channel 113, on Rumble, Roku, Pluto, Vizio, Gab, Telegram, everywhere. We meet you where you are. Make sure you're there today. We've got chat rooms all over the place. We've got live streaming all over the place, live chat all over the place. We have people monitoring it all the time. So make sure that you're in there and part of this community. Remember, this is an activist. This is active listening, not just there. We're not here to entertain you. We're here to make sure that we lay out the nomenclature, the process, critical path, statics and dynamics of events. You come to your own judgment. You get your own mental map, get your own judgment. Well, we do provide a platform for engagement, for your agency. We're about agency and about you maximizing your agency. So that's what this show is about. Also, this show is a global show. It's to the diaspora for the Chinese people. I think 250 million people throughout the world. And in mainland China, it blows through the firewall later in the day. It is in Mandarin, okay, in Mandarin. So we got a packed show today. Raheem's done an analysis of yesterday's CPAC, and did President Trump get the muzzle velocity that he wanted? I think Doug Collins and Raheem did come to the agreement he was not speaking to the room, and I think you would agree with that. He was speaking to a larger audience.
For sure.
Let's bring in the voice of John Fredericks. John Fredericks is being transported back to the global headquarters of the John Fredericks Radio Network in my beloved hometown of Richmond, Virginia. John, what's our first day? What's our first day like on the? What's our first day? Can we get that alarm?
No, that's the GPS telling him he's driving in the wrong direction.
Can we get? How was our first day in Georgia, sir?
I tell you what, Steve, our first day in Georgia, unbelievable. We had a tremendous launch today. Your show rocked, the Doug Collins show, off the charts. You know, on our app blew up with Collins at 3 o'clock today. By 3:30, nobody could get in. They were getting kicked off because we were over the maximum number of seats we have, which is 20,000. So he blew the app up, and he rocked today. He had great analysis on Trump's speech, both on your show. And the feedback that we've had today in Atlanta has been off the charts. Basically, I would say a mountain of love. People are just excited that they have in Atlanta a platform, somewhere to go to get the truth, somewhere to go to engage, somewhere to be part of a community and let their voices be heard. And in the words of Steve Bannon, the famous words, action, action, action. That's what we're doing, Steve. And you've been such a big part of this. And look, this is it. there's nowhere else to go with free speech except for talk radio. And we're going to continue to expand, go right up the spine, Steve, as you and I have talked about, to give people in North Carolina a voice as well. But this really is not about your show or my show. It's about the people of Atlanta, the people of Virginia, those on the app that have the opportunity to engage in the truth. And we're trucking it every day. And so, look, check us out. Download our app. We just have to expand the bandwidth of that today. Ends working on that as we speak. And you can go to johnfredericksradio.com. You can download the app there, johnfredericksradio.com. You can also help us out with a donation. There's a donation page there. We're buying, the best equipment that we can as we try to get our advertising up, and because we're all self-funded. There's no corporate donors. There's no Chamber of Commerce's. There's no Michael Bills sending checks. There's no Soros. It's just real people and a real radio station to get the truth out. So it's been a very exciting day, Steve Bannon.
Look, in the War Room, for those in Atlanta just picking up the show or just listening to us, War Room Pandemic, we talk about the pandemic. We also talk about global capital markets, the economy, geopolitics, politics, culture, all of it. We focus on the signal, not the noise. We're not going to chase the daily stories that a lot of people chase. But by the way, the reason is they do it better. That's what they're in business for, and they do better. We do it in a very different way. But the entire purpose of this entire team is really to be a war room and to provide a platform that you can get access. We want to allow you to maximize your agency. That's what this is about. And so we've had people like Scott Presler, like Dan Schultz in the precinct committee situation. Scott Presler, which is talking about voter registration. The prayer group, the prayer and fasting of Drew Mason. You've got the 8 a.m., 8 p.m. prayer club of saying a prayer for the nation. Rabbi Sparrow's about the the Judeo-Christian American Republic. In fact, Rabbi Sparrow, just a programming note, tomorrow at 5 o'clock this time, we're going to be updating all the news of the day, but we're doing a 1-hour special that my dear colleague, Raheem Kassam, has helped put together with Rabbi Sparrow. The persecution of the Jews in Europe and the global rise of anti-Semitism. That'll be a special tomorrow at 5 to 6 p.m. on the War Room. So we're honored to be a part of this, to be a part of the John Fredericks Radio Network. And one thing we can promise you is that we will put the best thinkers, the smartest thinkers in the world. I consider myself an intellectual snob, so we'll put the smartest people, and I hate wasting time. And I don't suffer fools gladly. So,
speaking of wasting time, I do also need to credit our producer Alexandra Priat for putting this show together tomorrow. Also,
yes, comms. In fact, Alexandra is going to be here. I think she's going to be in studio on Wednesday. I think we may have a co-host here with Eric Greitens. We got tomorrow. Captain Ben is going to co-host. We've got the head of Cloud Hub's going to be here. All that. So, John, before we let you go, we know you're hurtling up there. Good kickoff day in Atlanta. Georgia's the key. Like I said, as Georgia goes, so goes the nation. And so this is going to be, we got to get it sorted down there of what happened on November 3rd. You got to get all that sorted on this voter fraud issue. That's one of the things that we decided to launch down there. We want to make sure we've got our shoulder to the wheel. But I got to tell you, I think you picked it perfectly, and couldn't be prouder to be a part of it, and really want to hear from all the people in Georgia in live chat. Eventually, we're going to do Vox Populi. We're going to start taking calls again because we're too jammed up for the show with our guests. So, John, anything to say before we let you go, sir?
Just, Steve, that I thought your interview today, your fireside chat with Herschel Walker, was absolutely extraordinary, and I really enjoyed listening to his perspective, his story, what he's done. We really hope here in Georgia, which we just got out of here, but we hope that he's going to run for office. I'm not sure that he will, but if he does, he's going to be a favorite in whatever office he so seeks. But I tell you what, there are so many people in Georgia fired up about this network and their platform and the people that we compete against. Steve, I'm going to be honest with you. My program director got 35 phone calls today from people in Salem and other people that we compete with down there trying to figure out what we were doing. And we've also got a bunch of phone calls in order to expand the Steve Bannon War Room show. They want to expand Doug Collins. So one day, off the charts.
Yeah.
And we're really excited about giving people this platform because really the show, this network, is for them. Not for us. It's, Steve, as you've always said, it's for them.
Well, the Real
Deplorable.
America's Voice guys, back when they were AVN, took a gamble on us down. We were down at the wall, and I think it's paid off. The guys in Denver do a great job. Fredericks co-produces with us on radio. Those guys co-produce with us on all the TV. And like I said, when we first sat down and talked to them, is that we need to provide a platform for the deplorables. I'm a fire-breathing populist and proud of it, right? I come from a blue-collar family out of Norfolk, but up in Richmond, Virginia today. And, to me, populism has given the little guy a say-so, put him in the room, which is what Donald Trump did. Not in the room, not in the deal, as you find out with the party of Davos. Trump gave you a voice in the voice. That's one of the reasons they hate him, right? They don't want you to have full representation. And I think today Herschel Walker, I'm not even sure Herschel Walker needs to run for public office. I think he is such a role model as an entrepreneur. There's so much he can do if he doesn't get in elective politics. Today, I could have done that for 2 hours, and we were going to figure out how to do that. He's a guy not just of knowledge and, look, one of the greatest athletes in the history of this nation. And one of the greatest athletes that come out of Georgia, and that's saying something given all the great athletes that come out of the Peach State. But he had so much, not just knowledge, but also wisdom, right? You can understand he has a very deep appreciation for the Constitution. He's a man of faith and a deep appreciation for business. He's an entrepreneur. It was a pleasure. And like I said, it's one of those things in TV and radio. You got to move on to the next guest. But man, it was, and of course, my next guest was John Fredericks. But it was, I could have done the fireside chat for hours, and we'll have to figure out how to do that, John. But thank you, and thank you particularly. You're the guy that we called. In October when I told you, hey, there's going to be an impeachment, and you said, no, not going to happen, fake news. I said, well, let's launch a show and see how it works out. So it's so far so good.
Just so everybody knows, Steve called me. He said, I'll call you Sunday. He called me Sunday at halftime on the Washington Redskins game. Back then, they were still the Redskins. So that was at 2:30 on a Sunday. On Tuesday, we had a radio show up on the air. We did it in a day and a half, and it has taken off internationally. It's been unbelievable, but a day and a half we got it done. And that's how we roll. Yep. And but who'd ever think that we would have this populism, the populist radio network is basically what we are, and be taking over every area that we go into. Very exciting.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the head of the John Fredericks Radio Network, John Fredericks himself, the oracle.
Thank you.
Of the Deplorables. Thank you. By the way, for our radio audience and also for the podcast audience that listens to it later in the day, we always try to describe, as we have guests on here with charts, and particularly when Dr. Peter Navarro comes on. Peter Navarro is always from his own studio near the White House. He's always showing charts, etc. We try to explain them or make sure they put up in the live stream that you can see them later. We try to explain everything so you don't miss anything. If you're on radio, nothing on the podcast, you get hopefully the same programming that the folks at Real America's Voice put up on Dish Channel 219 and Comcast 113, and of course on all the other different various platforms. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. When we return, we're going to have Peter Navarro talking about the economics of the talk yesterday, and I know Raheem's going to want to jump in here. Raheem's got very, very definitive thoughts about CPAC, about blowing off the football, muzzle velocity, what the meaning of the president's speech was, and how it's going to play. Okay, we're going to take a short commercial break. We're going to leave you for our folks in Atlanta. This is Miles Guo, by the way, who I stole action from. This is the great Miles Guo, who's the biggest enemy of the Chinese Communist Party. He's a
people think it's me singing this.
I know. I shouldn't have broken their heart. Raheem is in backgrounds. This is Miles Guo. Take down the CCP. This is our out music. Take down the CCP. That would be, yes, the Chinese Communist Party, the existential threat, not only to their own people, Lao Beijing, but to mankind. We'll be back in the War Room in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
So I guess the world knows now there's a government in exile, and it would be the capital of that would be Mar-a-Lago down in Palm Beach, because the President of the United States, I think, came up and I said really laid down, I think with Tom Del Beccaro, who's leading the California recall effort, laid out about Jacksonian. It was Jacksonian, the fact that his specter, the specter of Donald Trump, is over anything. Right? This is the only way you get ratings. Joe Biden doesn't rate. Everybody knows that. So, Raheem, you disagree with me. You were not enthusiastic about the speech, or as enthusiastic as I was, as I think it was as I talked to Doug Collins about, broader than the room.
Yeah, look, and I'm not a hater. I still think it was good, right? It was still a 7 to 7.5 speech. I would have just liked a little bit more extemporaneous Trump. I think that would have appealed to a lot more people in the room. Look, I put it together with what we saw in the straw poll. I put it together with some of the numbers we're seeing here amongst the base as well. And I just think there is about a third of the conservative base out there that aren't, they're not anti-Trump now, but far from it. They love Trump probably the most. They just want him to come out swinging. They want him to be released from the shackles of some of the stuff they saw, some of the more cautious stuff they saw in the last months he had in office. They want him to be that Trump unleashed like they first fell in love with in 15-16, and I'm just not feeling it yet. Now, that's not to say that he doesn't have that coming. That's not to say that he made the wrong move yesterday. It depends what you were trying to do. If you're trying to present the case that you are a credible government or candidate in I want to say in exile, but in opposition, the loyal opposition, then he did the right thing. If he's trying to G the base up behind him, he missed a little bit.
Okay, Peter, I know that you watched it closely. You went through the transcript afterwards. You were really focused on the economics, the economic nationalism and the populist economics of it. So, Dr. Peter Navarro, what say you?
I'm with Raheem, but for a different reason. Basically, the president went through effectively a laundry list of 12 different issues which separate the Republicans from the Democrats. But what really separates what he calls Trumpism from the elitist globalists within his own party are only two issues. And that's jobs and a secure border. And obviously, they're intertwined. I would have loved to have heard him say to Joe Biden, we got over 10 million Americans unemployed. Why are you open the borders? I would have loved to have seen him hit hard on the schools are closed.
So hold it. But tie that together. How to open borders tied to worse opportunities for Hispanic, African American, and the white working class. Why?
This is the essence, Steve, of populist economic nationalism. What we have is a party of the working class in progress, right? That, with a second term, we would have nailed that down. But what we have is when you have millions of illegal aliens coming over the border with less than an 8th grade education and 25% English language proficiency, it's like a laser beam heading right at primarily black and brown Americans, often in our inner cities or food factories or in the heartland. And what that is, it's this big crush down on real wages. So expect no increase in real wages during the Biden administration. But it's also a Dickensian fight for job opportunities themselves. So it's very easy to wed this concept of secure borders with the need for jobs at rising wages and blue-collar America. And I didn't feel like that was done. It needs to be done. Let me show you the chart today, because that kind of helps put it in perspective. And thanks to Steve Cortez for getting this for me. But the question here really is, are we in a bullish or bearish mood? Usually when you got yields going up in the bond market, that's usually a bullish sign. It means it's a lot of economic activity pushing prices up and life's good, okay? And that's when you short the bond market and go long the stock market. The problem we have here, and a couple months ago I predicted a stagflation scenario and a crash in the stock market sometime in 2021. And this chart basically reflects this. I see this as a bearish chart. Here's what we got, Steve. We've got severe structural unemployment, meaning that there's just so many people who've been laid off because of the pandemic in industries which ain't coming back strong or ain't coming back at all, whether it's cruise ships, entertainment, a lot of stuff that goes on in our major cities. So you've got, you're going to have millions of Americans that can't get a job because of their skill set. At the same time, in other portions of the economy, we're not going to have enough of the right amount of skilled labor. And so that's going to drive up wages in a bad way. And it's also, we're going to start to see some inflationary pressures. And plus, the bottom line here, and this is the Cortez take on this, and I agree with it, is that the bond market's in revolt now. They see all this money washing around. And basically, if I think that there's going to be inflation in a year, I'm not buying bonds. I'm waiting. And what does that do? It depresses demand and drives up the yield. So that's where we're at. And again, I mean, it would have been nice going back to CPAC if that's a strong line of attack that we gave Biden a beautiful economy based on a very clear policy sets, right? It's tax cuts, deregulation, cheap energy, fair trade, increased defense spending. Joe Biden's economic plan is close the schools, open the borders, got nothing.
Okay. I just want to say, first time I've ever disagreed, I think, directly with Dr. Peter Navarro. You said wages in a bad way. To me, there ain't no way wages rise in a bad way, even for those sectors. Okay, I'm a wages up guy.
Let me explain that.
Okay,
let me explain that so you understand what I'm saying there. The problem is
this is the Harvard Economics Department talking to the MBAs. Go ahead.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
Hang on. The wages are going to go up, and that's great, but prices are going to go up faster. Okay, people are going to get priced out of their home when these mortgage rates start going up. So we love, but that's
but that's not
real wages.
Yeah, but that's not
that's what
okay.
we love.
But that's
real
not.
Wages
I know, but that's
up,
on the margin of the wages. We'll get back to that real quickly. I need you to explain it for people of the charts we're going to put on. But your radio audience and podcast, we'll get these charts up for you. But I want to go to because this is signal, not noise. Explain to our audience why Bob Rubin and Bill Clinton during the day. You always hear that they're managing the economy for the 10-year bond. What is that? Explain that. Why is a 10-year Treasury so important? Why is this kind of explosion in the interest rates of the 10-year Treasury was 50 basis points 6 months ago at the worst part of the pandemic? Now it's exploded. It's called the revolt of the bonds, right? Why is the 10 for our audience who are not specialists? Why is the 10-year Treasury so important to their lives?
For a couple of reasons. First of all, if you look at the manufacturing economy, the two big drivers in this country are automobile manufacturing and housing production, right? Those are like huge in the GDP equation, right? And both of those are very interest rate sensitive. If you've got like 8% interest rate versus like 1.5% like we've had, people are just going to be buying a lot fewer autos and houses. And so what that's going to mean going down through the supply chain and everything that goes, that's going to be basically much slower economic growth, maybe mild recession, maybe worse. And then the other part of it is that so much of what people do runs on credit cards. And in this pandemic in particular, people have credit card debt. And when you have these interest rates going up, which are tied to the interest rates in the bond market, you basically get a squeeze on consumption. So you get hit in production, you get hit in consumption. What you love is a steady, even low interest rate.
Not to get too technical, we'll talk about this in the days ahead, but I do also think it's offset somewhat. I think there's $1.7 trillion of savings that are backed up, so people haven't had the opportunity to spend. You're talking about 2022. I think all the Carnival cruise lines are booked for 2022. If that industry ever comes back, they know they got full bookings. I think the vacation homes, what I understand, are all booked for this summer at the beaches. People are looking
all the wedding venues.
All the wedding venues.
I've been looking.
All the wedding venues are booked. So there's pent-up demand. There's pent-up demand.
Yeah, there is that. We're rolling a lot of dice on the vaccines, but let me just say this. You can have that fancy scenario all you want, but at the end of the day, there's going to be millions and millions of Americans unemployed structurally that we're going to have a hard time getting back to work. That's the rot in the Biden economy that he's going to have to deal with. And that's why you need somebody like a Trump in there, because he understands what's going on.
Okay, real quickly.
The worst thing you would be doing now is opening the borders to flood the labor market with cheap labor.
I didn't get a chance.
That would catch up to us on productivity.
Okay, I didn't get a chance to. You got a minute on this. I didn't get a chance to read the entire article, but I had 100 people that know me and know my relationship with you send it to me. The headline of the Wall Street Journal. Was it not to just cross the tape that the Biden administration is basically going to keep the confrontational part with China on the manufacturing side and keep in Dr. Peter Navarro and Donald J. Trump's tariffs? Is that what the article says or just the headline?
That's what the article says and the headline. It remains to be seen whether the Biden administration will actually walk that talk. But that would be a tremendous victory, not for President Trump or myself or whatever, for the American people. Taking down the CCP. It's at the end of the day, decoupling and tariffs and all of that and everything in between there. We have to get off this addiction to the Chinese economy because they are literally killing us with their virus. They're getting ready to kill us with their military. They flood our factories. They steal our jobs. And it would be nice to see a Democrat administration, which is supposed to support blue-collar America and manufacturing workers, get that memo. It would be nice. It looks like that Wall Street Journal article says they're listening. Let's see if they follow through.
Okay, real quickly, 15 seconds. How do people follow you, Dr. Peter Navarro?
Real P. Navarro. You can catch that article in my hit on Maria Bartiromo yesterday. And then, of course, PeterNavarro.com. You can get alerts on election irregularities and immigration and all the other good stuff we put up there.
You look magnificent in your studio. Thank you to your producer, Joanna Miller. We're going to take a short break. We're going to return Boris Epshteyn, Raheem Kassam, Steve Bannon in the War Room.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, for everybody out there, forget Joe Biden's geopolitical strategy. It's so confused. Raheem Kassam's going to jump in here in a second about it. Don't worry about his defense pack. Worry about the War Room defense pack. If you're going to be a patriot warrior, first you got to be a health warrior. We need you healthy. And what we've done here at the War Room is procure 1 million bottles of vitamin D3 and 1 million bottles of zinc. Now, this is all sourced in the U.S. We follow the Rosemary Gibson. We don't source it in China. It's all sourced in the U.S. and manufactured here in the U.S. It's got great packaging. The packaging is looks like the Spartans at Thermopylae, right? The 300. So you can be a warrior. You need to be a health warrior. You need to go there today. Everybody in the audience needs to go to War Room Defense. That's one word. warroomdefense.com. Go there today, and make sure that you pick this up. Also, our good friend Mike Lindell came back, cut us a special deal. I want you to go to mypillow.com. You heard that before, maybe a couple, 3 times on Fox. You got to enter the promo code, though. He gave us a special promo code because of our relationship with Mike and the team over there. Enter the promo code War Room. That's all one word, War Room. You get 66% off. I'm not kidding you, on everything in the store. So go over to mypillow.com right now. It's our special deal with the MyPillow folks. War Room is the promo code for 66% off. Make sure you support MyPillow, the War Room, and also we want you to be healthy, right? So go to our War Room defense.com today. Tons of information out there. We're going to put more information out there every day, and maybe a couple special appearances by Stephen K. Bannon. Okay, Raheem, before I bring in Boris, the politics of MAGA, the politics of CPAC. But first off, it was a direct confrontation of Joe Biden's administration. This was a government in exile. He laid out an alternative plan for the nation of what he would have been doing on his second term, which, as we know, as the audience knows, we firmly believe he won on November 3rd, and we think the math is going to show that over time. And right now, I think 40% of the American people, well, it'll show it publicly over time. 40% of the American people think there were illegitimate or illegal activities regarding the vote in 2020. So walk us through it. How's Biden, you think, responding to, so far, the Trump throwdown yesterday?
So it's really interesting if you watch. I actually did. I've never done this before. I probably never. But on today's podcast, I have a podcast now.
I heard that.
Yeah,
the one that's drafting off us. Has my agent talked to you? Has my agent talked to you yet?
When you're today, what we did is I literally played the whole press conference, the Psaki press conference, from start to finish on 2x speed, and I jumped in with commentary showing you why certain things are happening where they are, and it's fascinating to see how this press operation is wholly concerned with Donald Trump now. They are wholly concerned with Donald Trump.
The specter of Trump.
Here's the tell. Yeah. They keep repeating that they're not. If you're not, you don't talk about
Right.
it. You know, it's
you have enough action that people are interested in. You don't need to talk about it.
It's what Margaret Thatcher always said about being a lady, right? If you have to tell people you are, you aren't. And it's the same thing with this. Jen Psaki is telling people she's not interested in Donald Trump. She super is interested in Donald Trump. They played today's press conference intentionally. 70% of it was foreign policy. Khashoggi and all of this stuff. It was all to distract from domestic policy. Don't want to talk about immigration. Don't want to talk about the COVID bill.
Schools.
None of
don't
these
want to talk
schools.
Don't want to talk $2 trillion COVID bill. And they got to do it in the dark of night. Don't want to talk about the school.
All of it.
Borders open, schools closed, and the vaccine. Who knows what's going on with the vaccine because they're not making it clear. Okay, Boris, I want to bring you. We had other topics for you to talk about, but since you were special assistant to the President of the United States in communications, what is your assessment of what's going on in the comm shop there? Are they completely consumed with the specter of Donald J. Trump?
They've got total TDS over there. TDS is running rampant through the communications and the press shop of the West Wing. You've been there. I've been there. I think they've even let Raheem there a couple times before he started wearing those cardigans. Okay? So this is a place where you're supposed to be thinking about foreign policy, national security, keeping Americans safe, alive. What are they thinking about? They're thinking about Donald Trump swimming laps in their heads, living in their heads rent-free. That's what's going on. And you know what? He should be, because Donald Trump is the real leader of this country. Joe Biden is nowhere to be found. Just think about yesterday. This was a Sunday where a former president spoke at an event populated by his most ardent supporters.
Yep.
I mean, if Barack Obama in February of 2017 went and spoke to the Center for American Progress or MoveOn.org or one of those other, left organizations, to be kind, would that make national news? Would all the networks, would all the prints be going crazy about it? Putting out the New York Times put out 3 headlines.
Hold on, they had pregame shows, pregame shows, postgame shows, and Boris, how about this? 31 million.
The Super Bowl.
We haven't ascertained this, but they printed a guy from the campaign put out today 31 million. Was it live stream downloads?
Just on the internet, 31 million. Not even cable numbers or anything.
31 million. So how do you think that's playing?
This was Super Bowl like. It was Super Bowl like numbers for Donald Trump. Joe Biden is non-existent. Nobody knows where he is. Every time they let him up there, he says something absolute. I mean, him in Texas was a disaster. He didn't know the names of the members of Congress. He didn't know the names of the people he was supposed to recognize. And then he finally said, "What am I doing here?"
53 days unoccupied.
Joe Biden.
Unaccompanied.
Juxtapose that with President Trump. Why is Joe Biden always there when Joe Biden does interviews? Why does he need her there? It's a little unusual, don't you think? Yeah. Obviously, we all know the answer. The issue is this: if I'm in the White, if I'm in
an unaccompanied minor,
God forbid, if I were in this White House's comm shop or press shop, I would be thinking about, okay, how do we push our agenda forward? How do we push our guy forward? But the answer is they can't, because the American people, both the pro-Trump and the Trump haters, are still all about Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden. They're just not that into him. It's like that rom-com, which I love. They're just not that into him.
Okay. Here's the thing. Raheem and I have disagreed all day about this. I want your assessment from a communications and politics point of view of the CPAC speech yesterday. And did it get the muzzle velocity that you anticipated?
I thought that the speech was robust. It was long. It was full of policy. President Trump is the unquestioned leader of the Republican Party. With that, you've got to bring policy. President Trump hit immigration. He hit voter integrity. He hit trade deals. He hit foreign policy. And then, yes, he hit Joe Biden over and over and over again. So I thought that it hit all the boxes needed to hit. It dominated the news cycle. And yes, so you had some coverage. The president complained too much. Well, Donald Trump's going to say what Donald Trump's going to say. He's going to be clear.
I didn't think it was that.
He believes.
By the way, Chris Hayes had, I think, a good point on Friday night that CPAC was a lot of grievance, not much policy. I think Trump went to the policy side. I didn't think it was that much grievance. But also, Boris, I got to get your opinion because you were on here. You were out in the field.
Who's on which Raheem? What's Raheem saying?
I think it could have been better.
You don't listen. You don't watch the morning show. Okay,
He's not awake by then.
Boris.
I'm resting. I gotta get my beard.
The president made the case and tried to show the receipts somewhat yesterday. To me, that highlighted why we missed the opportunity to adjudicate this in the well of the United States Senate, or maybe when Nancy Pelosi's commission comes up. But we missed the Lindsey Graham talked him out of the place he needed. That doesn't need to be done at CPAC. You can bring it up, but you're not going to be able to really get to the level of detail. And you saw the Supreme Court. Tell us what your thoughts are about actually how do you get the word out to the American people of what happened on November 3rd?
We've got to get specific. We've got to get specific about the states. We've got to talk about Wisconsin, about the fact that over 200,000 unlawful ballots under Wisconsin law were cast in Wisconsin. We've got to talk about Georgia, the over 400,000 allegedly unlawful ballots there, the lack of observation in Pennsylvania, the unbalanced precincts in Michigan, the illegal immigrants are voting in Arizona. We've got to talk about all of that happened.
You've got to talk about it, but the Supreme Court today said the Kraken's not going to be released on the Supreme Court, right? Because that got blown out today, right, without comment. So
I really wasn't counting on the Kraken, let's be honest.
Okay, so tell me where you're going to, it has to be talked about. It must be talked about. It should be talked about. Where are you going to show the receipts?
We've got to talk about it in terms of moving forward. Everywhere there are violations of Article 2, which means that state legislatures are not the ones setting laws and rules around balloting. We've got to be in court. We need groups that are battling for election integrity, and frankly, we need events that are actually in-depth receipts, action-packed on what to do next. We've got to tell the American people, especially the younger generation, in quick hits, in 20 minutes, the MAGA TED Talks. Here's what happened. Let's go through the states, and here's what we do. Because the past is important. As we know, history is prologue to the future, right? But it is only useful if you use it. It's only useful if you take action. It's always about action, action, action. It's not about some 2-hour seminar, where you've got 6 people on a panel
telling war stories. It's all war stories. I don't hear it.
Exactly.
Right.
That's not what it is. It's about action. It's about the future, and it's about ensuring that state legislatures, which Republicans overwhelmingly control, do the right thing, and it's about being in court. Okay. We've got to take Mark Elias and beat him at his own game.
Yeah, Perkins Coie, that law firm, they're the enemy, but man, they're good. Okay, I want to go to leadership. Last topic is leadership. President Raheem and Boris went out of his way to compliment Jim Jordan yesterday. At the same time, he said he called Cheney a warmonger. Must be listening to the war room. Called her a warmonger. No real mentions of McCarthy. Is it time, and Boris, would you put McCarthy on the clock? You either got to call another vote on this leadership, right? Lee Zeldin, these guys got to get motivated again. She's been arrogant. She's been persistent. And I don't know, coming out of CPAC with the unity that was shown by the Trump movement and, quite frankly, that 90% of the Republican Party, how you allow Liz Cheney to remain in leadership. Boris, we got about a minute.
Agree. Liz Cheney does not represent the Republican Party. She doesn't represent the Republican Party of Wyoming or the people of Wyoming. So how she could be the number 3 most powerful person in the GOP section of the Congress, I just don't see it. I absolutely don't see it. I'm getting all riled up about it, as you can see. We cannot have Liz Cheney be in leadership because she doesn't speak for the party. Maybe even Never Trumpers are saying, we're maybe 10%. Well, if Liz Cheney is the number 3 person, she has a much more power than somebody representing 10%. I absolutely think that Leader McCarthy should call another vote, and this time not votes, to keep Liz Cheney as conference chair, because she absolutely doesn't belong there, and the people of Wyoming are more likely than not going to send her back in 2022. So why have a conference chair who's probably not going to be there anyway in 2 years? It doesn't make any sense. I would absolutely call for another vote. Okay. Somebody like Elise Stefanik, Lee Zeldin would make a great conference chair.
She would. She'd be fantastic. Okay, give us your social media coordinates. Everybody wants to know.
Absolutely. I'm tweeting late at night and early in the morning because I am up early, Raheem, sometimes. At Boris EP On the gram, Boris underscore Epshteyn, Boris underscore EPSHTEYN on the gram, at Boris EP on Twitter. God bless. Stay strong. See you tomorrow.
Okay, I want everybody now to go with our great friend Mike Lindell. Go to mypillow.com, enter the promo code War Room, that's all one word, War Room, for 66% discount off of everything in the store. Short commercial break. We're going to return with the Precinct Committeeman, how you empower yourself, next on the War Room.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, we've procured 1 million bottles of vitamin D3 and also 1 million bottles of zinc. You can have it for shipping and handling. It's all made here, sourced in the United States, manufactured in the United States. Go to warroomdefense.com and sign up today for the War Room Defense Pack. Go there today. We need health warriors as much as Patriot Warriors. Now, talking about Patriot Warriors, a graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, Dan Schultz, head of this precinct, to make you a precinct committeeman. This is about human agency and human action. The website is precinctstrategy.com. Dan, why should people do this?
The why is real simple. It's because it's the only way that we're ever going to elect better people to, public offices. We're not we conservatives are not in charge of the Republican Party. And the way to do it is become a precinct committeeman. I'm going to explain that really quickly because I know we have a special guest on. So first slide is 23. I call this the art of the precinct. And it's a reference to Donald Trump, obviously. We have to Trumplify our party by getting MAGA people into it. There's 74 million of them. There's 200,000 vacant precinct committeeman slots. And if we can fill them up with MAGA people, we're going to run the party. The next slide is number 4. This shows what we need to have happen monthly now at the monthly meetings of our party. We need to flood these party meetings and go there and say, I want to become a precinct committeeman. There's 400,000 of these slots nationwide. There's about 200,000 vacant. We, MAGA people, have to fill them up. So next slide is number 5, just a real quickie, basically stating, again, the goal. Every precinct committeeman slot in our party needs to be filled with a Trump supporter. And it's just a matter of showing up. And I'm hoping that President Trump will start recruiting people like this. The next graphic is number 6, which basically shows the status of our party right now. At the top are the precinct committeemen. They elect everybody to the committee officer positions and chairs, all the way down or up, depending on your perspective, to the RNC. But right now, with 200,000 vacant slots and 100,000 being not conservative, 100,000 being Trump conservatives, we end up with a split party that's at half strength. The next graphic shows how magically it gets transformed if we invade and fill up all of these slots. Yeah. Now, all the local committee chairs are going to be MAGA people. So all the county committees are going to be MAGA people, and so on, all the way to the RNC.
Go to precinctstrategy.com right now. This is Dan Schultz's great site, the new site. Go there and get all the information. Listen, there are 400,000 billets. This is the Republican Party is actually built on a grassroots model. 200,000 empty, and guess what? The establishment is not putting that out every day. They're not advertising that half the billets are not filled. Why? They don't want you in there. This is why it's better. Do you want to be empowered? There's no quicker and more powerful way to be empowered than become a precinct committeeman. Mr. Dan Schultz.
And that last slide says, War Room made me do it. Do it.
I want to bring in now somebody that did. Stephen Stern from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, a precinct committeeman. Sir, tell us about your journey. Tell us what you did and what does it mean today?
Well, Steve, thanks for having me on the show. During the Trump campaign, I made 25,000 phone calls, and a lot of those phone calls we were asking people to join and get on the committees all over the country. I'm with the Broward Republican Executive Committee. I own the flagshirt.com. We speak to a lot of Republicans every day, and we ask them to join their committee. Now, I helped the president, Tom Powers, who was a new president from the Broward Republican Executive Committee, and he's able to really work almost 10 hours a day trying to get new people. So we went from 125, we're getting close to 300 members, thanks to Dan Schultz. I got 10 people today that I phoned where they want to do. There's one of my shirts.
Man.
Hopefully you wear it, enjoy it.
You certainly won't. You certainly won't forget it. You certainly won't forget it.
Well, I was lucky to meet the president here back in February of last year. Gave him a couple of shirts. Gave the first lady some stuff, and hopefully they wear it this July 4th. I think Dan has done a fantastic job in getting people interested. I know about the phone calls that we're getting, and my vice president, Joe Duver, and the president of the Western Republican Club, Nancy Cook. She's also the secretary of the Broward Republican Executive Committee, has done a wonderful job. These people work 8 hours a day trying to get people involved and the best they can. I've been in business 67 years, been successful. My son, Brett Stern, is one of the owners of the company and owns most of the company. I turned it over to him. He's done a wonderful job in getting these flag shirts all over the country. Whenever you see a Trump campaign, you see a lot of our shirts, going on. I probably got about 8,000 people watching your show. And, every day that I speak to people, now why I'm successful is because every time somebody buys a shirt from now to July 4th, we try to call them up, thank them personally.
Wow.
For the, for the purchase. Now, that's old school. I've been in business 67
Old
years.
school.
Found that to be the most successful thing.
Yeah, real quick, Stephen, real quickly, we got about a minute left. Why is it important in Stephen Stern's mind, somebody who's dedicated himself to this, why is it important for the audience to go to Dan Schultz's site and to sign up to become a precinct committeeman? Why is it important?
Well, first of all, when there's a presidential election, the precinct people get volunteers to get people signed up, to get people to vote, and you have a voice. I mean, Steve's program is our voice, and everybody that listens today should call their local executive committee or their Republican Party and try to sign up and join, because you are the people that are going to change this country. We've got to worry about our children, our grandchildren, and what's happening now to the country, as we all know, is pretty bad. So let's get started. Dan, thanks for all your help. Steve, thanks for all your help.
Thanks, brother. We got to jump. Listen, tomorrow we'll be back here at 10 o'clock with Raheem. Captain Mo Bannon will be in here as one of our wingmen. You need to go now to precinctstrategies.com. But tomorrow night, a special at 5 p.m., we're going to have a 1-hour special with Rabbi Sparrow and many other guests, Raheem Kassam, the persecution of the Jews of Europe and the global rise of anti-Semitism. Here in the War Room, we bring you updates of the news. But tomorrow night, a special you're not going to want to miss, and you're going to want to share it. Stephen K. Bannon, Raheem Kassam, jump in here, brother.
Podcast is up.
The podcast, Raheem's podcast is on fire. I keep telling Raheem, every time Raheem puts his shoulder to the wheel, good things happen. I want to thank Dan Schultz. I want to thank Stephen Stern in these magnificent shirts.
I'm going to wear that tomorrow morning.
We'll see. I'm Captain Bannon too. I'm going to see you tomorrow morning, 10 a.m.